Well, good morning to you all. I hope that you'll all be here next week. We have our last, I think, young adult pastor candidate coming in. We'll be here for Friday night. He's going to speak for the way. He's going to speak for the sanctuary and then speak for our main service. Right afterwards, we have a lunch already prepared for you, for everybody. It's not a potluck. We'll prepare it upstairs, and then around 2 o'clock we will have the round table interview. All young adults are welcome. You can come and ask any question. His name is Pastor Tony Werfel. He's been a teacher, he's been a band leader, gone across the country. Terrific young man. And we're going to pray. Then Monday night, the church committee will vote and hopefully make a decision and hope that someone will say yes. So pray the next few days. We're down to the end game. There's a joke that they tell, but it's actually a true story. There was a general conference person was over in Africa, and he's in a church in Africa that he doesn't know anybody, doesn't know the language, doesn't know what to do. He's sitting pretty close to the front row. So he decides he'll just do whatever the person next to him does. Stands, sits down, he'll do exactly what that person does. So there came a point in the service, the other guy stood up, so he stood up, and everyone laughed. He didn't know what he did wrong, sat down quick. After the service, he said to the pastor who spoke English, he said, what did I do wrong? He said, we had just announced that there was a woman in the church that had given birth in the hospital the night before, and would the proud husband stand up? And the guy stood up, and you stood up too. Well, once in a while, you pay a price if you follow the crowd. If you do what everyone else does, watch what everyone, you don't want to go out of line, always fit into the crowd, and there'll be a price to pay. I was in Chicago. I was pastoring at a big hospital church. This is before cell phones and everybody. All the doctors had beepers. So in every meeting, church board, whatever committee we'd have, there'd always be this moment where the beeper would go off, and doctor would grab his beeper and go out. So I got to make a call. And after a couple of years of this, I got a little, felt inferior. I have a doctor's degree. I'm a pastor of this big church. Why doesn't anybody think that I need a beeper? If I could just once in my life be in a meeting where no one else has a beeper and I have a beeper, and all of a sudden my beeper goes, sorry, I've got to go. I am more important than anybody else. And I said to my church, if I could just have a beeper, I would never feel inferior, never feel insecure again. And after church, every doctor in the church gave me the beeper. You can have your beeper. What is the deal with us? That we need what everyone else thinks is important. What would it take for you to never feel inferior again, to feel absolutely secure within yourself? It didn't matter what anyone else said, what anyone else thought. Jeff, can I use you for a minute? Come up for a second. Yesterday, PlayStation came out, right? You heard about this?
Yes.
PlayStation 4. Did you get one yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, good, good. So I went and got a gift certificate for one.
Okay.
It's in here. But here's the deal. You choose which envelope is which. One of these, I give you PlayStation 4. Okay. The other one, you choose the wrong one, you give me PlayStation 4. Fair?
You say so?
Which one, Pastor? Not sure?
No, not sure.
Let's try another way. One of these is a PlayStation 4. The other one could be way more than a PlayStation 4, like trip to Hawaii or something really fantastic. Okay. I can't tell you what, but it's fantastic. Way beyond PlayStation 4. Okay. Or it could be ice cream cone at Baskin Robbins. Which would you rather have? Would you take a chance on the big one, or would you grab the PlayStation 4?
But I have to give you a big trip to Hawaii?
No.
Oh, okay, well, the big one.
You'll take the big one. You'll take a chance. Might just be an ice cream cone. Nothing more.
That's fine. Yeah.
You sure? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do it. I can't afford the PlayStation 4, sorry. But let me tell you is this the best music stand we have? All right, hope it'll work. What was in the other envelope than the PlayStation 4? Here's what I'm going to preach today. It's God. It's God. If you had to choose between the PlayStation and God, which would you choose? PlayStation, you shoot all the giants and the giants go down. But the next guy who plays the game, the giants come back up again. Only with God will the giants be gone. So I want to talk a little bit today about David and Goliath. It's a story that you all know. God chooses David to be the new king. Can you transfer this stuff over there? Just take that one away. Yeah, thanks. David, the new king. He's the youngest of 7. His father says, go down and see what your brothers are doing. David goes down here. When he gets to the field, here are all the Israeli army over on one hill. All the Philistine army is on another hill. And down in the valley is this huge man, Goliath, maybe 9 feet tall, covered with armor, and he's the champion, and he is saying to all of them in 1 Samuel chapter 17, choose a man and come down here and fight with me. If I kill him, then you all are our slaves. If he kills me, then we will all be your slaves. Come on down, if any of you are willing to do it, and fight. Battle's going to be on the line. Whoever wins, everyone else has to go with them. David just goes off inside of him. He says, what is this? Everyone else has been hiding in the trenches for 40 days. David just says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine who can come out here and defy the armies of the living God? David says, I will be the one. What will be given to the one who will go and fight this man? The king Saul said, you're just a boy, you can't do this. His brothers come and says, who do you think you are? David doesn't care. He says, I killed a lion and a bear. The same God who helped me kill the lion and the bear will help me kill this uncircumcised Philistine. And you know the rest of the story. David picks up and he goes with a sling and he throws the rock and it hits the man in his forehead and he goes to the ground and David cuts off his head. And all the armies of Israel come running, and now they're very brave, and now they go running after the Philistines, and there's a huge victory. And I thought a lot about it. They asked me to preach about against the grain. David could just go and see what everyone else was doing. Everyone else is in a trench. David could go get in the trench with everyone else. You don't want to stick out. You don't want to be your own person. Go be in the trenches with everyone else. Which one are you? Are you a David who goes out into the battlefield and fights, or are you the one going with the crowd, hiding in the trenches? Do you tend to go by, you'll wear what everyone else is wearing? You will do what everyone else is doing. You will play what everyone else is playing. You will listen to the music that everyone else is listening to. You will believe what everyone else is believing. You will do what everyone else does. Or do you listen to your own voice of God in your own soul? Are you going by the crowd? Or do you go on your own? I was in Portland last Saturday night. Many of us went up to support Sarah Caldwell, and she got dedicated to be a nurse. I was a pastor in Portland 40 years ago. That's where I started. Places where I started, there they were. Those of you who have been here for a while know that there was a huge crusade right where I was, Mall 205, downtown Portland. My senior pastor was preaching. I went to see my senior pastor Sunday. He's 87 years old. Had a great hour with him. Just before he preached, the heritage singers were singing. Every night we had heritage singers, 1,500 people coming every night twice. I was in charge of the kindergarten. So I needed a cord. And And I had to go on the back of the platform, huge crowd. I'm in the back there trying to find the right chord. And I pulled the wrong chord on the whole Heritage Singers concert to a halt. All came back last Saturday night. And that chord and walk out and walk. And I made a little vow. I was never going to be caught in that position again. I was never going to be embarrassed like that again. Never take a chance like that again. Stay in the trenches. Don't go out into the battlefield where you couldn't be embarrassed. Maybe you won't win, but you won't lose. Sunday morning, they took me we all went to Multnomah Falls to go for a hike. I was just getting ready to go when one of my dear church members, your mother, comes out and says, Pastor Dan, we know you wish you had more hair, so we're going to help you have more hair. They wanted me to wear this. They wanted to know if I was going to be a good sport. Not worry what anyone else would think while I walked up that. I didn't care. I can't see how I look, so I wore it all the way up. Just feels like a hat. And you take it. Are you inwardly secure? It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Are you willing to go against the grain like David and just say, I don't care what everyone else is doing. Even if everyone else is a trench, I will go out and fight the battle. Or are you going with the crowd? When I was in school, these are the kinds of movies they would show in school back then. 12 Angry Men. I've been to the play too. One guy is up for murder. They come back. The whole movie is in the jury room. They take the first vote, 11-1. One guy says, I'm not sure. Henry Fonda. And he says, I'm not sure that lady can really see through the windows of a train in the middle of the night for a split second and identify that guy. They argue, come on, we want to go home, it's hot. He's guilty. The pressure comes to change your vote. He says, I won't vote this time, you vote. And if everyone is together, I will go with you. And they vote. And it's 10-1. One guy has converted. And by the end of the movie, he has converted every single one, 12 angry men, and they vote with him for not guilty. Are you the 11 or are you the 1? Going with the crowd or on your own? Willing to stand up? Malcolm Gladwell has written a good book. I haven't finished it yet, but read most of it. And he says, we look at David and Goliath as this iconic story for the last thousands of years. And we think David always stands for the one who doesn't have the advantage. He has the disadvantage. And Goliath stands for the one who has all the advantages. He said, maybe not. Goliath's 9 feet tall. He's 300 or 400 pounds. He's covered with 100 pounds of armor. He can hardly move. The only way he can win is if David comes and killer game. And they can just jab each other with a spear in short range. David's not going to play that game. David's got some other advantages. He's quick, he's young, he's a terrific shot. He stays far enough away, Goliath can't do that to him. And he takes that sling, and they think that rock could go 100 miles an hour. It was almost as powerful as a gunshot at close range. David had some advantages. And David won. He tells some great stories in the book. He talks about a man named Ranadev. He's an Indian man, came over from India. He's just a kid, but he's smart, and he gets a scholarship to MIT. He starts a company while he's at MIT. Goes to Silicon Valley, becomes a rich man. He's the coach for his little girls' basketball team, 12-year-old girls. They have never played. He has never played. They're playing all these tall kids. They're much better shooters. He said, how am I going to win this game against all these girls who've grown up with the basketball? So he finally figures out they would have to find a way to play the game different. All the other girls' teams, after they score, they would just run down to the other and be ready for defense. He said, we're not going to play their game. He said, you have 5 seconds to get the ball into the court. We're going to keep them from even getting the ball into the court. So they did what is called a full court press, where the girls cover the ball right there at the front and just harass everybody. Don't even let the ball get into the game. And pretty soon, you got 5 seconds, they begin to panic, and they throw the ball away, and you make a layup. You have 8 seconds to get the ball across half court. He said, we're not going to let them get across half court. These little short girls that had never played the game, got in such good shape, they could play the full court for the whole game. And they would be ahead 20-0. Just the other team would panic. Coaches would be mad. You're not supposed to play the game like that. Challenge him to a fight out in the parking lot. No, we're not going to play the game your way. We'll always lose. We're going to play the game the way we want to play. Not going to play by the crowd. Ended up in the national championship game. 12-year-old girls. Now he's the new owner for the Sacramento Kings. Not going to play the game the way everyone else plays. Willing to go against the grain. Do you tend to listen to the people who say, you can't do that? You don't have enough money for that. We've never done it that way before. And just play the game by the rules the rest of the world plays. Or we're going to be like David. It says, I am not going to play the game that way. He's a giant, but I'll play the game my way. Andre Gide says, the greatest gift you can give the world is the gift of being yourself. Paul says in Romans 12, don't let the world squeeze you into its mold. Are you inner-directed or are you directed by the people around you? I may have told some of you this story. Chicago. I'm pastor of the largest Adventist church in Chicago, next to a hospital. I heard Mark Finley preach a sermon about we ought to do something about the cities of the world. And so I thought, well, I'm pastor of one of the biggest cities here. I should do something. So we were going to schedule the Heritage Singers. We were going to rent a big hall and have a crusade. Scared to death. Did not know what I was doing. Got to do something. One of my ladies got mad, began to put a rumor around. Pastor Dan just got a big head. He wants to have a big number. He wants to baptize a lot of people and become a famous. Well, that's what they think. Okay, so I canceled it. And I was talking to my friend Dwight Nelson at Andrews about it. He said, Dan, that was Satan. That was not God speaking through her. That was Satan. You let Satan speak to you and take it away from you. You were playing to the crowd. No, you have to go by what the Holy Spirit calls you to do. You play by the crowd, you go by the outer voices, or you go by the inner voice of God in your soul. It's not a good movie. I've only seen the last 5 minutes. Please don't judge me for this movie. I'm not going to show it. There's the 3:10 train to Yuma. Have you seen this? Western craziness. I've not seen any of it until the end. They're in the hotel, the bad guy and the good guy. And he has got to find a way to get this bad guy to the train. He's got to go through this town, and every single person in the town has got a gun trying to get them, including the guy he's trying to take. He knows he's probably going to die, but he wants to do something right in front of his son. His sons are watching, and he wants to somehow redeem his life and do something right. Rather than play in the trenches and play it safe, he says, I'm going to take you and put you in jail. And he takes Russell Crowe and he takes him across the city into the train. Which one are you? Are you in the trenches, hiding in the trenches, scared to take a chance, listening for the crowd, or are you out there on your own? Number 2, of course, are you in the trenches or are you in the battlefield? Where do you tend to go? Do you tend to kind of stay on the sidelines and stay out of the game? I don't want to lose. I don't want to be embarrassed. I'll stay here. I don't take a chance. Or are you willing to run? David ran out there, take on this man who's defying God. You're in the trenches or in the battlefield. Which one are you? When the giants come into your life, do you tend to go right into battle and say, God's going to give me the battle, or do you tend to hide? Go into the sidelines. Wait for someone else to be the David. Hope someone will be the David. Someone needs to do that. Not me, but someone needs to be the one. Waiting for someone else to come in and cut the giants' heads off. Waiting for someone else. What giants have you killed this year? What giants have you cut their head off? What big project have you done that was just bigger than you could do? It scared you to death, but you just, okay, I will not give in. What challenge have you said, I will not give in to this. I will come out of the trenches and I will fight a battle. Which giants have you taken care of this week? What are your dreams? What are your goals? If money was not an object, if money was not an obstacle, what would you do in the next 5 years? If no one would stop you, if you knew you could do it, what would you do? 5 years from now, what do you wish you were doing? What are your dreams? And what's keeping you from doing it now? What's getting in the way? Goliath stands for whatever you're letting keep you from your dreams, from you know what your destiny is, what you ought to be doing, want to do, what God has called you to do. Goliath stands for whatever giant is standing in the way. I have a coach, meets with me every week, and he asked me a few months ago, what would you be doing in 5 years if you could do whatever you want? Close to retirement. And I wrote it down. I didn't think about it hard, just asked God to run it. I wrote down some things, and I wrote down our church would be 1,000 attending church. We have 500 something now, but 1,000. Just a number, put it out there. I sat down one morning and typed 4 pages of what it might take to do that. Gave it to the staff. They said, Dan, let's do it. Church board voted it 2 weeks ago. It's our church's master plan today. And the first person, of course, people ask you, what about parking, Pastor Dan? Where's the parking going to be? I don't know. All I can tell you is that we have a committee of 10 people. Some of you were on that committee. And we met this week. We don't know what to do, but we're exploring every avenue somewhere, rent parking, do something, buy houses, crazy ideas. There's a giant. We are not going to let the giant keep us hiding in the trenches. If God has called us to be a great church, then we're going to find a way to cut that giant's head off. What would you be doing 5 years from now if there was nothing in the way? Are you in the game? Do you tend to get into the game, or do you tend to sit on the sidelines and watch everyone else play the game? I don't know if you're a Laker fan or not, but just to use this idea, you can be a Laker fan listening on the radio. You can be a Laker fan reading the paper. You can go down to the game. You can be one of the Laker girls who's on the same court but not in the game. You can be one of the players. You can be one of the fans in the game. Or you can actually play the game. Which one are you? How close are you to the battlefield, or are you kind of on the sidelines and in the trenches? The famous quote called the Man in the Arena quote by Teddy Roosevelt. One of the great human beings just was willing to tackle anything. I've read books that have gone all over the world, explored unexplored rivers, safaris in Africa, all kinds of things. You get tired of being criticized when you're a leader like that. And he wrote this famous quote, Man in the Arena. Said, it's not the critic who is always going after the people who are in the game. It is the man in the arena, covered with the dust and the sweat of the bull ring or whatever they're fighting in, out there in the game. Yes, he may lose, and he may lose a lot, and he may fail one time after another. But at least he's in the game, and he's trying. At his best, he says, he will experience the triumph of victory. At its worst, he may fail, but at least he was in the game, which is better than the cold and tepid souls who know neither victory nor defeat, he said. Man in the arena, in the game, taking on the giants of the world. Number 3, what do you see? What do you see? David said, you come at me with sword and spear and javelin. What do you see? David was not blind. When you see what you see, he saw the giant. He saw what the giant was. He was not blind. But David sees something bigger and more. David sees God in the same picture. What do you see? Do you tend, as soon as God puts a vision on you, I don't know where the money, where's enough money? I don't think we can do this. There's not enough people. Why can't, that's going to be too hot. It's going to be too much stress. It's going to be too long to go to medical school. I don't want to wait that long. And you see all the negatives. You see the sword and the spear and the javelin. God, but what about God? What do you see when you see? Elisha and Gehazi. Elisha's after Gehazi. They're going to do this great victory. Gehazi says, we're too many. We don't have enough people. We're surrounded by this huge army. And God says to Elisha, show him. And God pulls back and lets Elisha and Gehazi see the other side. And there are chariots and horses everywhere. Do you only see what the human being sees? Or do you see the God in all the chariots and horses? Yes, it's true that there are hard questions about God, and I can't answer them all quickly today. They showed pictures of Pine Springs Ranch the other day at our pastor's meeting up in La Sierra. Terrible fire, and they showed before and after. And here's the gate, and it's there, and now it's gone. And they showed the caretaker's house, and now it's gone. But they said, praise God, God protected our lodge and the cafeteria. And the cynic in me said, if God can protect the lodge, why not the caretaker's house too? I understand that there's some limits. If you and I are on a safari in Africa and you need brain surgery, and if I say, there's no one else, let me be the one. And let's have a little prayer here. God will bless me. And I pull out my pocket knife and pour a little alcohol and begin to do brain surgery. You may say, I don't care how much you pray. I'm not letting you do brain surgery. I understand that there are some limits in the world. The question is, how great are the giants? Are there some giants that God cannot do? I do not know. I will just say this. Our God is big enough for every giant in the world. There are no giants that are too big for God. For every giant, there's always some solution. God has a solution. He may not choose to do it in this world, but God is powerful enough to handle every giant and every Goliath in the world. Amen? Whatever you have, any addiction, any relationship, any financial issue, test at school, whatever you have, there is no giant that is too big for God. Just to give you a quick little 30-second story from the Philippines this week. Philippines got together with me a couple nights ago and said, Pastor Dan, what can we do for our people in the Philippines? I didn't know. They were talking about getting clothes and sending them over. No, they don't want stuff. So we thought maybe we could raise $1,000 or $2,000. I got on the phone. I actually found a mission president that I know over there. And he said, we've been devastated. Can you help? I said, do you have a truck? Can you buy water? Yes, he says. I called the general conference. The people we usually use, takes a month to get the money over. They said, Pastor Dan, we'll trust you. If you'll send a check, we will trust you that the check's in the mail. We'll put the money in the mission. I put the word out by email from Tuesday till today. $21,500 has come to our church. We mailed $10,000 Thursday morning. 2 hours later, after we put the check here in Garden Grove, the truck began to move Friday morning over there to the coast. I went to one guy who was promised me $2,000. When I got there, he wrote a check for $5,000. And then he got on a plane to go. I would have missed him by 5 minutes. God is big enough to chop the heads off some Goliaths. Got to go quickly now and finish up. I'm going to say, number 4, that there is a David for every Goliath in the world. You may not agree with this. Maybe not every single Goliath. There may be some evil that is just evil. But I believe that most of the evil in the world, God has a David somewhere. There's somewhere 5 little stones, and there is a David that God has called to take care of every Goliath in the world. For this 11 million people that are suffering, somewhere there's somebody that has money, food, water to take care of that person, if they were all willing to do it. If they would get out of the trenches and go and do it. There is a David for every Goliath. I'm proud of our own Dale Camara. Told me the other day he wanted to get my help for a little talk he had to give. He said, Dan, I've got to give a talk in front of the Big Brother Society. He had chosen a kid. He helped that little kid. That kid ended up getting an award on the video, so Dale's the one to give a speech to raise money. 6-minute speech. And they raised $250,000 during his 6 minutes. He was the David for that Goliath. Whatever Goliath you've got in your life, I don't know what it is, there is a David for you. That God can come into your life and knock off that giant and cut its head off. Number 5, there is Jesus. You think about Jesus standing there on the cross and going into the grave. I thought about the beasts of Daniel 7, the bear and all of those beasts, and then the dragon. And then Christ comes, and Christ destroys all of those dragons of the world, and Christ sets up a kingdom. Christ is the final champion. Christ is the David against the Goliaths of the world. Well, we believe in the same way that David and Goliath were there. When David won, all the Jews won and all the Philistines lost. If the other guy had won, all Israel would have lost. The whole battle came down to one battle between one-on-one. Same with Christ and Satan. When Christ wins, we all win. Christ was there on the cross. Every demon was there fighting him. And when Christ won, just like Clint Eastwood or John Wayne, they walked down the middle of the town. High noon. All the villagers there watching to see whoever wins for everybody. When Jesus won, you and I won. You don't have to wonder whether you're going to be able to be good enough to win your battle with Goliath. Jesus has already won the battle with Goliath. All you have to do is trust the battle that's already been won. Number 6, someday there's going to be a battle that you and I are going to win. Someday, Revelation 15 says that we will stand on the sea of glass victorious. None of us are going to stay in the trenches in the last days. Every single one of us, when we hear people mock God like Goliath mocked God, we're going to be like David. Who is going to stand against this man who was defying the armies of the living God? I come to you in the name of the Lord God Almighty. And you and I will come out, and we will be part of the great army that's coming out of heaven on the white horses. And we will fight, and we will be victorious over Goliath. Revelation 19 says all the wicked will be served, just like Goliath said he was going to do it to the birds of the air. And you and I will be the Davids in the army, winning the great victory over God. So I ask you today, if I could give you a PlayStation or give you God, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a brand new PlayStation and play your little video games and knock off all the giants in your video games? Or would you rather have the God of the universe, who has power over every giant and Goliath in the world and can cut off the head of every giant? And when God cuts them off, they don't come back again. May you be people who are willing to go out into the battlefield and fight the battles. Would you bow your heads for prayer? Our Father in heaven, I thank you for this story. It's one of the classics. It's one of the bedtime stories, David against Goliath. Every time there's a battle between an underdog and a giant, bring up the story. But Father, may we be part of that group that are not in the trenches, that are not afraid of the giants, that something will go off inside of us whenever we hear God being mocked. And we will not be afraid to go after the giants of the world and know that you will give us the power to knock off every giant that's in the world. And someday, we will be the triumphant army on white horses, winning the final battle for you, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.